Welcome, friends, to another edition of Social Pulse Weekly from Agora Pulse, now syndicated through NPR. Roll the intro, Mike.
It's Social Pulse Weekly, brought to you by Agora Pulse. With this week's special guest, Jay Acunzo. Discussing this week's hottest topics and latest developments in social media marketing. With your host, Jennifer Watson. Here's Social Pulse Weekly.
Hey guys, happy Friday and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. So it is no surprise who our guest is on the show today. We're so excited to have him here, but I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you so much for joining us on this Valentine's Day. And something really fun I want to talk about quick. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. And so I gave her this bouquet of balloons this morning in her crib. And she was just like, "Mommy, what is this?" And she almost floated away through the house, which is really funny. So hopefully you guys are having a great Valentine's Day. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your all-in-one social media show where we always have an expert interview, talk about the latest social media news, and have a little fun trivia where you can win an Agora Pulse hat or mug, your choice at the end. So let's get started. And before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Jen Cole. She is our show sponsor for today. And the amazing Jen Cole is the community manager for the San Diego-based Social Media Examiner and producer of Social Media Examiner's SME Chat. She is also the co-host of the Making a Marketer podcast alongside Megan Powers. Jen has presented about community management and building strong online communities in several events across the nation, including Digital First Midwest in Kansas City, the National Dance Society Conference in Virginia Beach, and Social Media Day Wichita. Jen has a strong belief that social media channels should be utilized to grow tight-knit organic communities of followers who genuinely identify with a brand. Fun fact about Jen, she is also an internationally ranked pinball player. Very interesting. And welcome to those who are also joining us right now. And I want to know where you guys are watching from and what your biggest achievement of the week was. Let us know. Remember, this is a two-way conversation. And now I want to introduce our amazing guest, Jay Acunzo. He is the author of the book, Break the Wheel, and the founder of Marketing Showrunners, a media and education company which helps marketers create better podcasts and video shows. Their mission is to help marketers find and share their voices, make a difference, and shift the culture for the better. He got his start in marketing roles at companies like Google and HubSpot before touring as a professional speaker and docuseries host and producer for brands. Today, Jay hosts his company's popular podcast, 3 Clips, which deconstructs great podcasts and a few little pieces at a time. So Jay, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you're here. Seriously.
Thank you for having me and for the chance to reenact some of my favorite NPR moments by turning the gain up on my microphone and leaving it in close. That was a great cold open.
Oh my God, I know. And you guys, we were talking before the show even started. We were just like, I was like, oh my God, it's so soothing. I don't know if you listen to NPR. Let us know if you do listen to NPR. But I was just like, Jay, that is so awesome. And we have Deb Mitchell with us, obviously our show sponsor. Juan Santiago is with us as well. So thank you guys for joining us. And we're going to get a few more in here as we head throughout the next hour. And I'm so excited to talk to you, Jay, because I feel like your resume is just through the roof. And I want to learn, though, you were a sports journalist in college, and then you've turned into tech, marketing, like this amazing guru and this amazing career. Tell us how you moved from sports journalism and really got into kind of the marketing industry and wanting to change it for the better.
Sure. So, and I should mention this right at the top here, since I now teach and create shows for a living. One of the most powerful things you could do is open cold, which is what we did. I want to give you another teaser to start if you're viewing this. I am home filming this at a very different location than normal because on this Valentine's Day, my 14-month-old daughter is downstairs with a fever. My wife is taking care of her, and I'm way far removed from the Wi-Fi router, and it has cut in and out a couple times on us. So will we stay connected? Stay tuned and find out. So that's a little bit of intrigue to keep you around.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect.
I did start in sports media. I wanted to be a sports columnist because I loved these big sort of saccharine human interest stories that you get in sports. And sports is such a nice microcosm of society, and all the themes are there. But it's this nice, neat little sort of snow globe you can turn over and examine. Well, business has been that since shifting out of sports for me, telling business stories that resonate, actually having a handle on what the mechanics of storytelling really are in a world where everyone claims they tell stories. If you go deeper into that idea, that the sort of pithy notion of what stories are, it's very simple. Its stories are these narratives about humans facing some kind of conflict or tension. And so I just like doing that kind of thing for a living. Turns out the business world is a great place for that. So early in my career, 2008, the economy was not so great, let's say. And so print papers weren't doing so well. So my internships at print publications as a sports journalist did not turn into full-time offers. Shocker of all shockers. And I got very lucky and I got a job at Google as a digital media strategist. So that sort of opened my eyes to tech and marketing and using creativity to to build brands online. And from Google, I kind of saw every then niche of tech. I went to a really small startup and shifted from sales to content marketing. I went to a mid-stage startup, which was HubSpot right before the IPO, kind of saw that stage of growth. And then I went to a venture capital firm where I ran their brand for 3 years, building community, creating content, and lo and behold, launching a podcast. And ever since that moment, probably 2014 at this point, I have been making shows for brands or teaching it through marketingshowrunners.com. And we're just experiencing this moment of marketers shifting focus from grabbing attention to holding it. And turns out the world's best vehicle to hold attention is a show and all the good stuff that follows, right? Trust, loyalty, relationships, all that stuff. So ever since realizing that, I've decided I just want to teach this stuff and bring together a community of marketers that make shows.
I love that. And just, I don't know, the way you describe it and your inspiration. I mean, you worked at HubSpot, Google, so many different places. Was it something that when you were working at those, different companies where you were just like, you know what, I'm so inspired by this and I just want to change the way marketing is done? Because for me, like Jay, I hate to be marketed to, and I can see it from a mile away, and every marketer wants to grab that attention, but sometimes they don't know how to, or they're just going down a to-do list. So what really made you be like, you know what, this is my passion. I was born to do this. I don't want to do the 9 to 5. I want to do my own thing. How did you get that?
Well, I would say that, Google and HubSpot they were not the reasons I decided like I'm inspired to go do this work. I was sold this idea in school that if you work hard and get good grades and join the extracurricular clubs and become the leaders of those clubs, like if you put together the resume as a student and then get a job at a reputable brand, you've made it, you're successful. And the optics, if you look at my early career, I did that. I was working for Google after going to school and getting the grades and all that, and I was miserable. And HubSpot too, miserable, right? No fault of those companies. They just weren't the right jobs for me. And so I realized like very quickly through a lot of thrashing and being upset about it that, oh, right, your career is this constant journey of self-improvement, of self-awareness, of trying to figure out not what's the best approach in general, but what's the best approach for you. And so for me, the things I value are things like creative control. I treat my writing, my newsletter, my podcasts, I treat this as a way for me to help understand something better, like help my own brain kind of click on it, and then maybe someone else. Like I'm not trying to say, here's the answer and I'm scooping it out to you. So I'm always tinkering and trying to figure out how do I use side projects and creativity as a means to get closer to understanding something. And it turns out today, there's a lot of people saying they have the answer. But if you switch your focus from that and say, I don't have the answer, but I'm going to try to figure it out, a lot more people want to go on that journey with you. And so that's kind of what happened almost by accident. I was creating all this content on the side, blogging and podcasting and all these things while miserable at these day jobs that were supposed to be great. And I was like, wait, this is resonating with me and with other people. I think it's time for me to pursue this full time. And so for the last 3 years, I've basically been doing, I've written a book, I've been delivering speeches, and I've been building marketingshowrunners.com to be an education company. And I don't think it was born out of any one realization at one brand. It was kind of this decade of just figuring out what was the right path for me by trying lots of stuff and making lots of stuff. The whole like fake it till you make it thing. Yeah. I heard, who was it? Chase Jarvis, the CEO of Creative Live. He likes to say, make it till you make it, right? Create content as a way to understand and build community and find your answers. Don't wait till you have all the answers to then make something. And so I found that to be true throughout my career. And that's kind of how you get me all the way to this moment in time.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I feel like we've kind of had sort of similar journeys somewhat in my career. Cause I mean, I'm an actual degree meteorologist. I was in weather for 10 years. And just last year, I love social media so much. And I had to run it for, our brand, my personal social media channels. So, and then I shifted last year full time to Agora Pulse, which has been amazing. But it's funny how you find this passion. And being a meteorologist working for their stations made me realize that passion, but sometimes you don't realize, oh my gosh, I really should be doing this and inspiring people this way. And I think that's so fascinating and so wonderful. And I love that you actually pivoted to something that inspires you. And I'm sure like you're a lot happier and you're so excited.
Yeah.
Like you get up in the morning, you're like, this is great. This is exactly what I'm made for and what I'm supposed to do every single day, which I bet feels so good. And I want to give a quick shout out to, we've got Nazim, who's joining us from Italy, guys.
Hey,
so
Nazim.
it is like, what is it, 9 o'clock? Nazim, I forget what time it is. On Valentine's Day, you're joining us. I love you so much. Thank you. So giving you lots of love. Ken Watson.
Yeah, piacere.
Yeah. Ken, you're joining us from Houston. And thank you so much. We've got Brad Friedman. We've got Mia Voss joining us too. We've got Alan, who is from Ireland, who's also joining us. So you guys, thank you so much. I love this and we love you. And I would love for you guys to share, those of you that are watching, a brand that you think really connects with you or is relatable that you're just like, wow, I want to market how they market. I would love some examples from you guys. And Jay, with that said, I want to transition to the question, what do you think marketers are doing wrong? Like right now, this day and age, what is the biggest mistake you see marketers making that makes you cringe? And you're just like, I wish we could fix this.
There are so many things now. It's hard to generalize this broadly because there's a lot of people doing a lot of good, but I think a lot of the bad can be traced back to one, let's say, obsolete mentality, which is, and I hinted at it before, marketing used to be about grabbing attention, whether rightly or wrongly. I think a lot of marketers interpreted their job as, I have to grab attention. I have a few minutes or a few seconds of people's time in disparate touch points. And if I get them to interact with this interruption 7, 8, 9 times, their likelihood to buy goes up. That's from a bygone era. Marketing is no longer about grabbing attention. Marketing is about holding attention. And so you see the best teams in the world think about subscription, not impressions. You think about total time spent and not views or downloads of a podcast. You think about, really what it comes back to is instead of measuring totals, like we got more of something, measuring value, measuring impact. Maybe the podcast is smaller than the blog. Maybe it has more impact, though. We should measure the impact of all of our work, not just totals, not just vanity metrics. So if you believe that marketing is no longer about grabbing attention, it's about holding it, the less marketing-y, icky way of saying this is very simple. Great marketing is not about who arrives. It's about who stays. And if you embrace that that is our marketing mandate, it should change your philosophy. Gone are the days where you should or can jump out in front of people and try to trick them into paying attention to you. I mean, we're living through this era now where I think we're seeing a last desperate gasp of the hucksters, the people that are trying to game algorithms, the people that are posing in front of a Lamborghini saying they have the secret to success. I mean, those are the people that believe it's about grabbing attention. The people that are going to thrive longer term and are thriving now, they believe it's about who stays. It's about holding attention. And if that is your mandate, there is no trick. There's no way to cheat your way into that world. If you need hours of someone's time, if you want people to actually stay, there's only one tactic that really works, which is to deliver a genuinely good experience, because no one is going to choose to come back if they feel tricked, if they feel cheated, if they feel spammed, if they felt like you overpromised and underdelivered. Like we're living through this resurgence, this renaissance, if you will, of marketers who do things the right way, sticking and staying and winning out. Because they know this is not about grabbing attention. This is about holding it. It's not about who arrives. It's about who stays.
And that's exactly, I think it's really hard. And not just even for marketers, but for executives to understand, because they're like, well, you're not getting the reach or the likes, the vanity metrics. And it's like, it's not about that. It's building community, strengthening those relationships,
Yeah.
and humanizing your brand in that way. And when it comes to, here with the show, our live shows that we do at Agora Pulse, and I know we talked about this before the show, is that yes, reach matters, but it's the amount of people that actually stay to watch. We don't want people just coming in. We don't want to reach 100,000 people and only have like a couple video views, or 1 minute video views. We want to make sure that people like the content, they're here to stay. And I think along with that, we try to solve problems, or like bring experts like you on to help people, so they can learn from you and just take that back to them and make their marketing that much stronger. And I think people lose so much focus from that though, Jay. Like, you're 100% right. And I think, it's the big wow factor, but it's actually the big stay factor. We want them to stay.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about that's a nice idea, Jay, but like my executive wants to see a growth of a top line number, like the number of people in a database, the number of these things.
Yeah.
And I think but maybe it's because in school we were taught that there's a correct answer and a wrong answer, and we will do everything in our power to avoid even hinting at the fact that we have the wrong answer. Like, we're unwilling to just say to that executive, that client, that peer, so you want more of this metric. Why? Why do you want more downloads of your show? Well, it's because that's a signal that the audience is growing. Why do you want the audience to grow? Well, because we want the show to have impact. Oh, well, maybe we should measure impact. Maybe we should think about, what is the average revenue per subscriber through all of these different channels? And yeah, it's going to be harder than dropping a pixel on a web page. It's going to be harder than, generating some chart through Google Analytics, or it's going to be harder than opening up an Apple Podcast dashboard. But through some surveys and an email database, like, you can very easily understand what is the value of somebody who is among a smaller number of things, right? I think it's way more impactful for your brand if you have a small, passionate audience than a big audience that's aware of you. Like, awareness is a proxy for what we actually want. We actually want affinity, right? But we assume if we get the big number, the broad awareness, affinity, and relationship, it'll just sort of happen.
Yeah.
And I think, why not be proactive, go after the thing we actually need, which is affinity and trust, and forget the proxies, right? If something is proven to have value, it's proven to build trust, like a podcast, like a video series like this. Now look to grow it. But we put the cart before the horse. We're like, make it bigger. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is really important to ask, because I think if you do ask why enough times, you get down to the thing that you, the marketer doing this the right way, actually wants to execute against, which is, you don't want more infinity. You want to have impact. You want to make a difference with the voice that you have. So we need to get to that, measure that, and build around that.
So basically, guys, Jay just told you how to measure anything you're doing with marketing and ask the why, which I love that, Jay. Like, you should be questioning, and you should do this. I'd like to do this like every quarter, or at least twice a year, is question the metrics you're measuring. Why do they matter? What's our goal? What's our success? And I think a lot of marketers, they're like, we have to do this, but they don't know what the end game is, and they don't know how to measure that.
Exactly. And I think when we talk about our end games, we can use the word goal, right? As like, that's our end game, that's our goal. We often misconstrue what the goal is and what the measure of the goal is. So if you say, grow the podcast 50%, that's a measure of a goal. So what's your goal? The goal is to create the most trusted podcast in that niche. The goal is to show the world how fun and relevant you are. Those are goals. Goals are plain language. They're not data points. The data is how you measure the goal. Revenue, leads, the growth of a statistic. These are measures of the goal. And because we don't have the goal, we retreat to the measure and conflate the two. We fall victim to something called Goodhart's law, which is an economist. This guy Goodhart came up with this idea. When a measure becomes the goal, it ceases to be a good goal. And one easy example is, when I worked for HubSpot, one of the reasons I didn't like it there is I want to create content that's free. And they put a lot behind forms. And the reason is they want the emails in the database, right? Well, turns out if your goal becomes grow the database, you'll cheat, hack, and trick your way into getting more names in that database. Now, are those names actual prospects? Are they the right names? Who cares, right? Because the goal is something we exceeded. It was X number of names in the database. So when you have that metric and it becomes the goal, instead of the measure of the goal, now you kind of misconstrue where you should focus your time. You're like, I'll do anything as long as I can hit the number. Whereas what you should focus on, another way of saying this is the process is the point. Make a worthy blog, people will subscribe, right? Don't put the call to action up front because you're worried people won't. Make something that's so valuable. They're like, how do I get more of this? Right? So that's how you avoid this idea, this good arts law. You actually understand what the goal is, and then you pair it with the right way to measure that goal.
And I love how you said that. And I think a lot of I wish you could just talk to all the executive teams, in marketing.
I'm trying. I'm putting out as much content as I can to do that. So we did a whole month in November on marketing showrunners called Make the Case Month. We were just talking to marketers who need to make the case for better content in their organizations. We're doing our best, Jen.
Yes, no, I love that. And Rieger said that he sees the parallels to Simon Sinek. I'm probably going to pronounce that
Simon
wrong.
Sinek, yeah.
Yeah, Simon Sinek. Start with why. And he said, this is very helpful, Jay. Alan said quality over quantity, that gives sustainability, which is so true, Alan, because even executives are like, why aren't we pushing out this many posts every day? There was at a prior job that I had, they wanted to post 50 to 60 Facebook posts a day. And I was like, what are you doing? It just was not the way to do it. And that is Alan, that is so true. And then Nazim, we have a question for you. Jay, this is from Nazim.
Sure.
What is your opinion on AI in the future of marketing? And I'm also curious to know, Jay, what your opinion is on messenger bot marketing.
So these are tools, right? First of all, AI it's overblown because it's in everything already. It's just the degree to which it's artificial intelligence is at play, or maybe we're talking more about machine learning, that ability to rapidly improve based on incoming data. It's funny, I've worked in marketing for 10 years. And I've almost never thought about technology. I've almost never thought about most of the things we panic SEO. I think because if you just focus on people and you focus on the strategy and the creativity elements of this job, you are protected against your job being automated away. So my opinions on AI are the same as my opinions on messenger bots. It's like, these are tools. It's how you use the tool that matters. Messenger bots right now are being abused because marketers think, okay, I got to get more. I got to spam a little bit harder because I have numbers to hit. So I'm sorry, I'm hearing there's a little crackling on my end for the microphone here. I'll try to fix that.
Oh no, you're totally okay. I wasn't sure if it was me. Okay. You never know. You never know with mics, guys.
So I'm doing a poor job answering this because I don't really have an opinion on it. Because I think we need to stop thinking about, what's coming, what's the trend, what's the technology disruption, and we need to just get back to serving our customers. And the answers will surface themselves. You can live a whole career. 11 years in marketing now, I haven't had to think about SEO once. And I'm a content marketer. I create stuff for a living all the time. And the reason is I set up a system to talk to customers constantly and talk to listeners and do video chats and all those things. And I write content that I think would resonate with them. And then when you check the numbers at the end of the month, 60 to 80% of traffic comes from search, right? It's but I don't have a technology for that. So I think we kind of put the cart before the horse again a little bit. And we're thinking too much about these boogeymen, these looming ideas that are so big and amorphous. And it's a nice intellectual exercise. It's fun to think about stuff like that. But if you really just want to serve the audience, you have to actually talk to that audience and actually find a system that works for you to intake insights all the time from them. And the rest of the stuff is incremental, including things like AI. So the punchline here is, if your job says automation in it, that job will soon not exist. Marketing automation experts better get good at the strategic element, the use of the strategy and the creativity of the tools. If it's just to run the tools, you're obsolete soon. Everybody else, I don't think we have to think much about this stuff, quite frankly. I think we do too much of it.
Yeah. And I think I love that you're saying this. I just wish we could broadcast to the world right now, because it's very, I know. We're trying to, guys, share this out. Actually, give us a little love today on Valentine's Day. If you would share this out to your friends, your followers, or even tag someone that would actually find this really useful, that would be awesome. And, we've got one, H to H always wins for me, human to human. Yes, I personally don't like bots. And I'm kind of the same way. When I get a bot, I rarely actually look into it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't even pay attention. The one person that's kind of changed my mind about bots is Kelly Noble Mirabella. she knows how to personalize it, so it doesn't seem as body, if that makes sense. But I get what you're saying, like with everything, like Jay, I 1,000% agree.
Well, here's another thing too. This stuff only works if you're the exception to the average. That's it. Thinking about newsletters, I don't know how many people watching this have subscribed to people's newsletters to try and get some kind of entertainment or education. I will subscribe and very quickly unsubscribe to tons of newsletters, but there's a very, very short list. I'm talking 3 to 4 newsletters that I have been with for a long time. So if I were to look at my history, like my data, if you will, about using newsletters, I would end up writing a blog post like, the newsletter is dead. 7 reasons why marketers should not create a newsletter. Because look, it's 35 unsubscribes and 3 that I've stuck with. They're tools. It's how you use the tool that matters. And I think when we get into a dangerous territory is we make decisions based on generalities instead of the specific tests and insights in our own situations, right? So the bot that, I'm sorry, the woman that you mentioned, what was her name again?
Kelly Noble Mirabella.
So Kelly, 10 out of 10 high fives. Like, she found a way to use this tool in a way that the audience responds to. I hope she's not just going to the big numbers and trying to say, oh, I got a small number that wasn't annoyed, right?
Yeah.
That's what marketing becomes in many cases. Annoy the many to convert the few. But good for her. Like, she used it well in her situation. You're not Kelly. You have a different set of beliefs and your life is different. You have a different set of resources. You have a different customer base. So these are all tools, right? If we were in the analog days, marketers would be writing about things like, what do you think about this looming disruption of pencils by this new technology called pens? I don't know. Isn't it about how you write with the pen that really matters?
This is true. This is very true. I love that analogy. That's a great analogy. So I want to know, Jay, what newsletters you're actually subscribed to, if you can remember off the top of your head. But most importantly, what is it about those 3 that made you stick and stay with them? Like, what made them extra powerful? Because the funny thing is, I subscribe to so many and I really need to unsubscribe because I get flooded all the time, every single day.
Sure. Let's see if I can rattle some off the top of my head. So the first one is not marketing, it's Bon Appetit. So I think Bon Appetit is one of those few media companies that predated the internet and was very print heavy, and they've done a good job adapting. I don't know the health of the business, but and sorry guys, I'm getting a message that I still have some static here. I do not know what's going on. But Mike in the booth, if you can continue to monitor that, let me know if it gets any better. So Bon Appetit has done a good job with tone of voice and becoming more of a multimedia digital organization. Their daily newsletter, it's recipes, it's opinions, it's like this grab bag of different stuff. So their tone of voice and the ability of them to continually reinvent the newsletter, 2 reasons I subscribe. Ann Handley's great newsletter, Total Anarchy, comes out every other Sunday. She's a gem, she's a friend, and so I embarrassingly joined that newsletter kind of late in the game, like 16 weeks into it. But I've had that ever since because, again, tone of voice and the way she kind of like runs you around the content and ideas that she herself is interested in. It's like a journey around Ann's mind a little bit. And then the last one is Andrew Davis, who's a speaker and an author and a friend and mentor of mine. And he really helped me understand the value of shows before I started teaching it. And he himself has a great show called The Loyalty Loop, which is a video show. And very big think, kind of like that good type of brain hurt that really makes you think differently. And so his newsletters arrive, I believe, every Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And he gives you early access to his episodes. And that's basically it. The rest of the things I learned from are what I would call like slow media, like books, conversations, trying to go deeper with people who write longer form stuff, podcasts, certainly. So our newsletter is something I love. Absolutely. 3 of them, right? The right newsletter. And I think it's about, you have a point of view, you understand your audience, you're not making a commodity, and you're also not starting with how does one make a newsletter in general. You're starting with, who am I? I'm Ann Handley. What is my tone of voice? What is my point of view? And you're laying that over the medium. And so I think the punchline to all this is, as marketers, we like to talk about the container. Like, what is a newsletter? What is a podcast? What is a blog? How long should they be? Wrong questions. It's about what's inside that people are actually after. And lo and behold, if you just focus on what's inside, you can make a newsletter that's big or small. right? Like Ann's is really, really long and it comes out every other week. Andrew Davis's is really, really short and it comes out every week. Bon Appetit's is kind of in the middle. It comes out every day. There's not much you can learn about that stuff other than they've actually like put in the work to figure out who they are and who their audience is and the best vehicle for serving those audiences.
And you mentioned two of my favorite people, Anne and both Andrew Davis. The way they present is amazing. And Anne, when she's on stage, she's just a phenomenal storyteller. She captivates you. She doesn't have to scream or have an insane amount of energy. Just like she captivates you and pulls you in just the way she explains and describes things,
Sure.
you know? And she talked about Bun, this bunny that she found in her yard, and then related that all to marketing and how she got it to actually eat out of her hand, you know? And so I love that you mentioned them because it is truly, you know, what they do and the products they produce. They're phenomenal.
Right.
And I want to give a quick shout out to Mitch Jackson. Jay, do you know Mitch?
No, I don't know. Maybe.
So he's actually a
Hey, Mitch.
lawyer. He's amazing. He's actually, and we're going to have Mitch on the show just to talk about marketing and social media, anything having to do with the law at all. But he's incredible. He's in California. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. He's brilliant. We've got Scott Ayers, who said he's pretty much unsubscribed from all newsletters, which is true. I get that, Scott, because, well, I haven't, but I need to because my inbox is completely flooded. Right. Pete John said, great questions and excellent answers here. Yay, the audio is fixed too. Thank so you. Yeah, Pete, thank you so much. Yes, and Cody mentioned Andrew Davis, and you said something else too. I'm trying to look back up if I can find that comment. You can't automate human interactions. This is so true. Couldn't be more true. And with that said, let's talk about your book, Break the Wheel. It talks about making the best possible decisions in your situation, regardless of the best practice.
Right.
And Jay, I love how you put this because I think everyone sees, oh, well, this brand is doing it this way. This is how everyone says to do it. We need to do it this way. But it kind of depends on, you know, what works best for you. So can you talk about your book and kind of like the biggest highlights of it?
Yeah, and I so appreciate you highlighting it like this on screen too. It's really nice, you guys. So I wrote this book because I basically felt this internal angst and disdain for a lot of the commodity work you see in any niche. And in particularly, it started with marketing, but the book has expanded beyond just marketing topics. And I think what was to blame was best practices. Like, why are we doing that? Shrug, it's the best practice. And so, I dug into that over about 2.5 years of telling stories and looking at studies and trying to aerate ideas publicly to get feedback on my podcast. And that became like this public research vehicle. And 2.5 years later, I wrote the book. But the central tenet is basically, we live in this era of infinite possibilities, and we don't really have a system for vetting those possibilities. So we use a shortcut for that system, which is the best practice. Because all a best practice is a possibility that was previously vetted, sometimes vetted by us, more often vetted by somebody else that hopefully we trust, or vetted by the history of our company, the teams that have worked there before us, the people that have worked there. But we're using a shortcut to making choices, to vetting a possibility. The problem is finding best practices is not the goal. Finding the best approach for you is. And how do you do that? Well, instead of looking at what works on average or what works in general, we should be thinking about what works for us. We're hoping they're the same, but often they're not. And it's because of one problem. A best practice misses very crucial variables that are only found in your context. And so the best way to make a decision, especially when you're surrounded by too many possibilities, is not to start with a generality and hope you can make it work in your scenario. It's to start with your scenario, understand the key variables there, and if needed, go get a best practice. Because very quickly you can decide, that best practice everyone says we should do, is it for us? To what degree? Or maybe it's not for us. And if you look harder at the science of it, there's a reason that we all act like this. It's something called pike syndrome. So there's like a science experiment that explains it. Essentially, they experimented on pikes, fish, by lowering minnows into a tank containing a pike. And if you do that, the pike will eat the minnows right away. But if you lower in the minnows surrounded by glass, the pike will smash up against the glass because it can't see it. And it trains itself into believing that it can't eat minnows. And then you can remove the glass and the minnows can swim right in front of the pike and he doesn't go after it. It explains a concept called, right? It's nuts. Yeah. So this explains a concept called learned helplessness. And I think that's the culprit. we are taught in school that there's a right and a wrong answer. And then we get out into the workplace and there is no correct answer. Everything is basically, it depends. Like, should I use a chatbot? It depends. It depends on what? It depends on your situation, right? So some people make a newsletter work for them. Some people don't. Same with a podcast, same with live video, all this stuff. They're just tools. So if you can start with the it depends, you give yourself a decision-making system. So the journey that we go on in the book is with all that stuff as the backdrop, all this average work and the causes of the average work. If we want to be exceptional, how do we make better choices that lead to more innovative work? And so that's kind of like, that's where we go in that book.
I love how you basically have, like, through this entire show, reverse engineering everything we've thought about marketing and what you should be doing. But you're causing us to ask the questions that we should be asking ourselves. People, I think there's a lot of pressure, especially from executives, just do this, do that, instead of, is this the right way, with the best practice, but should we be doing it the way that everyone else is doing it? And it's amazing how, even talking about learned behavior, it's very intriguing. We had Jen Herman, Jen's Trends, who's an Instagram expert. And it's funny, a lot of people are finding more engagement on Instagram stories, like 2-3 times engagement, people viewing them, than their regular feed posts. But Jen is like, that's not true for me. Everyone else it might be, but for me, it's my feed posts. And she's like, my audience knows where to find my information. It's so crazy. And she made a good point. If you're going to change how, you put information out there, if you're going to do more stories or do different things, you need to allow like 4 to 6 weeks at least testing to see if that's where your audience will go. You can't just do a week or two because they know to go to, your feed posts or your stories, wherever you're posting. But it's fascinating how that Pike study, how it's just like, it's so true. And you should question everything. It's kind of just like science. As a scientist, why is it this way? You should question anything that comes to you. So I love this, Jay, and I think everybody should buy his book. Because it is absolutely fascinating. Now, I wish we could talk about your book all day, and we're approaching 2:45. So I want to talk about, I have a few more questions to ask you. And you guys, if you have questions you want to ask Jay, ask them now. We have about 8 minutes left in the interview, and I want to make sure we get your questions asked. But really quick, you talk a lot about less video and more story crafting. Can you elaborate a little bit more when it comes to marketing and creating your content for that?
Well, very strategically on marketingshowrunners.com, we use the word show infinitely more than we use the word podcast or video, because those are distribution channels, right? That's how you get your show out into the world. Is it going to be audio? Is it going to be video? Is it going to be both? Is it going to be a blog, a newsletter? Like, again, these are tools, these are containers. It's what's inside that counts. And so we just start thinking more seriously about what's inside. So when we talk about how to craft a show, we're talking about essentially like moving through 4 different phases, and they kind of operate in harmony, like this nice little flywheel or cycle. So when you move through these things and you keep moving through these things, the result is affinity, trust, people spending more time with you, all the things we want as marketers, but we operate in a very different, I think, broken fashion, because again, we think the job is grab attention, not hold it. So those 4 stages are: say something that matters to your audience. And so often we skip that. We're just like, we got to make a podcast because it's a podcast. What are we going to do? We teach social media. We're going to make a social media expert show. Guess who else makes a social media expert show? Every single person on the planet in the niche, right? Like, so what are you saying? What's your angle? What's your concept? What's your premise? So say something that matters. And people skip that part because I think sometimes they don't value it. They don't think it's actually worth thinking through. But in the same way that, like, when you think about a brand, you want it to be different and refreshingly different at that, not just stunt-like different, but a different and good kind of different. The premise is like how people self-select into your world. Very quickly, they can decide, is this for me? Is this not for me? They can anticipate, oh, wow, this will be different. This is a journey I'd like to go on. So when you have something, when you say something that makes a difference, your next challenge is, well, once people self-select, how do you keep them around? How do you ensure they get to the end? So that's the next phase of this little flywheel, get to the end. Because that's the one golden rule of running a show. It's get them to the end. And there's all these techniques, both in terms of production and marketing, that you can use that we teach to get people to the end. Why? Because total time spent, a valuable amount of time spent, yields that relationship. It's like intimacy that scales. So you have something, you say something that makes a difference, you get them to the end. Now you want to deepen the relationship, offer opportunities to go deeper. Sometimes that's just in your content. You have little inside jokes or these recurring segments or whatever. There's a community feel that develops. Jen, you've been shouting out people that are watching us. Like maybe you recognize some from prior videos. That's great. Now you're deepening the relationship. It could also be away from your content. It could be inside of an email list only available through your show, and you get exclusive content, or what Andrew Davis does, early access. So you say something that matters, you get them to the end, now you deepen the relationship, and finally you reinvent consistently. We like to think that it's about one-off big stunts, but actually the science shows that when you make small but refreshing changes all the time, people stick around longer and they remember you more. This is a phenomenon called behavioral tagging in your brain. Novice experience creates long-term memories, but the novice experience doesn't have to be that big. It can be very small. So for example, you might do a mini series once in a while, or you might change how you open the show, or you might say, hey, we usually do this, but today it's a behind the scenes. We're going to tell you how we make the show, or we're going to take callers that call in with questions. But small and refreshing changes to reinvent the status quo of your asset all the time deepens the relationships and gets people to continue to stay, and most importantly, refer people your way. So now you have these 4 stages. Nowhere in there have I said, and it's a podcast. And it's a video, right? Because when you say we're making a podcast, you anchor to the comps that you can find in your industry.
Yeah.
What we're trying to get you to build with this system is brand IP, is something identifiable, something that is defensible, that nobody else could do but you, that the audience deeply loves and shares, and that competitors can't just copy. It's brand IP. And how do you create brand IP? How do you create a show? You have to talk about those things. You have to be strategic about those things. We happen to have that 4-stage system, but it's any number of ways to get there, as long as you don't fall victim to this idea that we're creating yet another video or yet another podcast, right? Don't create a podcast. Don't create a video series. Don't even create a show, really. Create brand IP.
Oh, Jay. So what's going to happen is I'm going to rewatch the show and take 1,000 notes from you, because like literally, no, everyone, Alan is saying, I'm so enjoying this conversation. So
That's
many
really nice. Thanks,
gems.
Alan.
He's like, I will have to go back and watch. Jay is so
Thank you.
insightful. Carrie agrees. She says the book sounds great. Yes, you need to get it. And Evie mentioned from the previous question, she's like, her mom always said, if everyone jumps off the bridge, will you jump too? Which is, and it's a good point. She's like, get ideas.
And the marketer would say, only if a guru wrote a blog post about it on Medium.
Exactly. There you go. Perfect. Well done. She said, get ideas from others, but test if it works for you, like it works for them. And I love that. People just, God, they fall into, oh, it's a podcast, it's this, and not really to what they care about, Right.
I got to shout out Jen Cole here, who's saying, hey, what's up, Fanzo?
Yeah,
good to see you. It's good. So Jen mentioned like that you got to keep things from getting stale. To me, stagnation is the enemy. And what stagnation causes is even your most loyal fans to start looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so we undervalue that because we're looking at more instead of deeper with the right people. And if you look at, Seth Godin calls it smallest possible audience. Kevin Kelly calls it 1,000 true fans. You can think of the tech world with minimal viable product. You have minimal viable audience, whatever. When you get a small number of people, if they truly do stick around for a long time, they'll evangelize you. They form the foundation of the house upon which you can build something big. But a lot of times we just want the house so bad that we don't take the time to do that dirty work that's underground of like, we have a strong foundation, we have some super fans, and now we can build anything we want as big as we want because we know they're going to stick and stay. Well, the only way they stick and stay, in other words, the way you shift from grabbing attention to holding it, is if stagnation becomes your enemy. And that means don't pull random stunts once in a while. Reimagine things, reinvent them in little ways all the time. And a show just happens to force you to do that because it has things like episodes and segments and seasons. But no matter what we're putting out into the world, I think we have to think about creativity less as random stunts and more as little wrinkles on the status quo that we can do consistently.
And gosh, I love everything you're talking about. And I think, Jay, one way that we prevent our show from being stale, and guys watching, let us know, because we have some of our amazing super fans here with us with like Carrie, Alan, Brian, Jen, Nazim, all of you guys, Mia Voss, Evie, I could go on forever, Juan, all you guys are so wonderful. But the one thing for us is having an interview show, you it allows you to automatically kind of not stay stale. You're not talking about the same topic because we brought you on, Jay. Each week is a different new topic that you can learn from and grab ideas from. And I think that's a great way how we try and stay not stale, but like refreshing, reinventing the wheel kind of every week, you could say. So I love that, Jay. And you're giving me more ideas as we're going through this interview, which is amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is awesome. And you guys, if you have any questions for Jay, please ask him. This is your opportunity. Jay's a busy man, guys. And I mean, if you're not following him around the world while he's speaking, I mean, this is your one opportunity. And also, you should get his book too. But Jay, let's talk about your podcast, 3 Clips, really quick. You basically, and I may be wrong in this, but you guys kind of deconstruct really awesome podcasts. And I would love for you to talk about more about that podcast and just some great examples from it.
Sure. Well, we started out with a central thesis, with 3 clips. You guys are on top. This is amazing. What a great show.
This is Mike, our producer, Mike.
Go, Mike. So 3 clips, the thesis behind this is a little broader than shows. It's that stuff we were just talking about where creativity is not big, doesn't mean big. It doesn't require resources. It requires resourcefulness. With apologies to Capital One, it doesn't matter what's in your wallet. It matters what's between your ears. And so what you can interpret creativity or innovation as is just making lots of small choices that add up to something other people really like. You're getting the final product, so you think it's big. Behind the scenes, it's very small. So we're kind of like surgical in breaking down great podcasts. And we've done branded shows ranging from Adobe to REI to Drift to HubSpot to some smaller shows coming up in the works. We've also done a lot of legendary shows from the media. Like my favorite one, I think our most popular episode was from, we did Gimlet Media's Startup. We're doing TheRinger.com's Binge Mode on Monday. And so we're not just sticking to branded shows. We're just trying to find any show that we can learn something concrete. And we run it through this system where we break it down in different segments. So depending on the type of episode, we have multiple types. You'll hear this like hopefully proprietary framework. Again, our brand IP for the show is to run it through this segmented process of understanding what they do well and also what they do not so well, so we can go all make great shows ourselves. So that's the whole concept behind 3 clips.
Oh my gosh. You guys need to add this to your podcast. You need to subscribe. You need to make sure you listen to every single episode. Now, really quick, Jay, I want to know what gets you excited about marketing? And also, what are some of your go-to apps or like tools, anything content creation wise that you can't live without?
The thing that gets me probably most excited is we have a chance, and I think it might not have existed before right now, as marketers, to truly have a voice as an individual. I mean, we try to remove ourselves when we talk about the work a lot. We try to either say we're doing marketing like to our audience, which I think is wrong, or it's like, what is the playbook? And we're not really associated with it. I also think that's misguided because I think we matter. The individual marketer matters more than ever. And so, I mean, I'm seeing people in the chats from Jen to Brian to, here on this show with Agora Pulse with Jen and with Mike behind the scenes as a producer, like the individual matters more than ever. And so that's why we say at Marketing Showrunners, we're not trying to say we're teaching marketers to make shows. We're saying we're teaching marketers to find and share their voices so they can make a difference to their careers, to their companies, to their customers. And what happens as a byproduct of all that, especially with an impactful vehicle like a show, you shift the culture for the better. So I love that. That gets me so excited because never before in the history of our world, of our craft, have we had that opportunity. And I think it won't be for everybody, but for the people who march towards that opportunity, it's hard, but I think it's meaningful. It's a meaningful type of work.
Okay. And we're getting good questions here. So, Brian, I'll get to yours in a second. Mitch, your thoughts on keeping business simple, focusing on keeping things simple and fast, yet still being creative, which can be difficult sometimes. That's a great question from Mitch. What are tips for you? Simple and fast,
unrelated, right? So we have to break down each of those one at a time. So simple, something I struggle with. Simple, yes. To me, simple means accessible. To me, when you can access something, whether you're on the receiving end, like if I'm on stage giving a speech, the message has to be simple, or you're creating something. Keeping it simple, of course, is the best approach. I'd love to know why he's asking this, but if it's simple and fast, like do something that doesn't require much rigor and because you want to get it out quickly, I think that's the wrong interpretation. Because if you really think through some of the world's most impactful content, it probably took them a while to do. They weren't churning out 5-6 pieces a week or a day. So I think, again, volume and quality, we kind of like have that debate too much. They're unrelated. You can do a lot of things very poorly or a few things very poorly. You can do a lot of things very well or a few things very well. They're two different adjectives. It's like sort of saying, like, are you tall or good at basketball? We conflate the two. Like, if you're tall, you must be good at that. They're actually different things. So simple and fast. Simple, yes. Fast, depends.
I love that. And then our last question, Brian. Now, this is a great question. What do you put as a higher priority, production quality or versus consistency of delivering the show? So let's say like it just takes a lot, like there's just no way for you to produce a show every single week. It's just kind of more sporadic. What is more important, do you think?
Well, if you put out a really, really terrible show, which I know Brian does not, but if you put out a really, really terrible show every single week as promised, not going to really matter, right? But if you put out a really, really great show every question mark weeks, also not going to matter. So you have to find a way to get to the Venn diagram overlap eventually. But I think this is it depends on the person answer. So if you're someone who aspires to create a show like the ones you admire, but you don't know how, I think it's a better approach to say, I'm going to make my best attempt. I'm going to admit to people this is my best attempt and ask for feedback. I'm not going to profess to be great yet, but I'm going to show up week after week after week until I build the creative muscles necessary to be good enough that people say this is really, really good and worth my time. I think of this as, if you can't do it in your work, do it as a side project, right? This is the Ira Glass quip, where he had Ira Glass, the host of This American Life, one of the biggest podcasts on the planet and radio shows. He talks about the gap between your creative taste and your skills. And the only way to close the gap, because you can envision something better than you're capable of creating, the only way to close the gap is to put out a lot of work. So if you, the person, need the skills, need the chops, need the reps, put out a lot of work consistently. That's where I would start, Brian. You're beyond that, I think, personally, although we'll talk about that because Brian's coming on 3 clips. Yeah. Hashtag shameless plug. And but the production value is also important too, because it's not editing. It's not what's done in post. Production value can come from what you plan up front. So if you have a system to interview somebody, you have a segmentation to your episode, you have an angle, a premise over your whole show. These are the things we try to explore on 3 clips. That's production value. And yet you spent no more time or budget to do any editing or add anything like music or sound effects. So careful with production value, because I think it can come from planning as much as post-production. But if you have to choose the two, consistency or like, crazy bells and whistles, I'm talking to the person who needs the reps and the skill here. Focus on consistency, because you will get there. So that's the punchline. Aspire to be great, but make sure you're taking lots of consistent steps towards it right now.
Oh my God, that's the perfect advice, Jay. I love that. And Brian says, bam, love the answer. Hence why I have a call with you, Jay, next week before launching my new interview podcast. So this is very true, you guys. You can hire Jay. And he says, no, I don't know a lot about, yes, you do, Brian. We're just going to move past that. And Jen Cole said, I feel like it truly requires a team to produce something with both quality and consistency. That's very true. And Alan said, I think we all matter and we need to share our content that helps others learn. Educate, inform, and entertain. We never stop learning. So awesome. Carrie is really looking forward to the replay. I missed the beginning and I can tell I missed a lot. This is, yes, Carrie. And so I'm going to host a watch party. I do this every Tuesday at 2:00 on the Agora Pulse. I host a watch party of this show.
Oh, wow. That's so nice.
Because it allows me to watch the show and actually review, like, how was I with asking questions and everything. And then, all the quality, but also I take notes too, from like the great stuff that you're telling us.
This is game tape. I mean, oh my goodness, we're in such a luxurious era as marketers. Like, we interact and operate and play and communicate on the same channels we do marketing. Like, that didn't happen before. You weren't going out on the weekends to design a billboard for your own personal project on the weekends. Right now, you're on the same channel. So like what I say to people who are podcasting, publish a podcast, go listen to it when you walk the dog like a listener actually would, right? Yeah. Go put in a lower quality pair of headphones than your high powered cans, because that's how listeners will consume it. It's game tape. So massive kudos to you, because I think that's such an opportunity to, again, show up consistently, but get better and better all the time.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Jay. And the one thing is like, I don't like watching myself, but you just do it, guys. Like, just listen to your podcast or, basically whatever Jay said, and you'll learn so much every single time, which is very true. So you guys keep thinking of questions for Jay, but we are going to switch quickly to some news. Now, I don't know if you guys are big Pinterest fans like our, producer or not, but Facebook kind of quietly released a new app called Hobby, which is meant to help you document and remember the things you love to do according to its App Store description. So this is kind of a competitor here to Pinterest. The app was recently made available in the US and a few other countries. And basically the existence of the app, which hasn't been previously reported, reveals that Facebook is continuing to quietly experiment with new services outside of its core brand. Interesting enough, Pinterest shares fell roughly 4% on the news of this happening. So I'm interested to know of those of you that are watching. And first of all, I'm interested, Jay, are you a Pinterest fan? But for those of you who are watching, would you be interested in another kind of dreamer type DIY app like Pinterest? Would you be interested in actually getting Hobby? And Jay, are you a Pinterest person?
I'm not a Pinterest person. No, I'm Twitter is my sort of main focus on social, a little bit Instagram, a little bit LinkedIn.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny, Jay? Twitter was how I fell in love with social media. I'm a huge Twitter fan. Not a lot of people are, I feel like, or I get that vibe, but Brian's a huge Twitter fan too. But it's just how I connected with so many people like me, which is amazing. So we've got Hobby out there. Now, if your Instagram app or Instagram login account has been disabled, they are now Instagram is launching a new appeals process, which is really awesome because sometimes with the robots and AI and everything they're using to scan all the feeds, the content, your account could have been disabled, but you didn't actually really do anything that went against the rules or regulations. It was kind of just a misunderstanding. And so now there's a new approval process or appeals process, I should say, that allows you to actually appeal that decision and hopefully get your account back if you weren't doing anything against the rules. So you guys, if you have a disabled account, this is for you. Kind of Google this and pay attention to this. Mia Voss loves Twitter too. Alan loves Twitter. I love that you guys love Twitter. Carrie is a big Pinterest person, and that is plenty. Yeah, I feel like once you dive into like similar apps, though, I guess with Meerkat and Periscope, we used both at my prior job. It was hard, but then Meerkat eventually died. So a very sad death, but Meerkat was awesome. And one more quick thing. So you guys probably saw this. The FTC, this was announced on February 12th, votes to review influencer marketing rules and penalties. Basically, undisclosed influencer marketing posts on social media should trigger financial penalties, according to a statement released by the Federal Trade Commissioner. And so this was voted 5-0 to approve a Federal Register notice calling for public comments on questions related to whether the endorsement guides for advertising needed to be updated. So this is kind of for the influencer game or those wannabe influencers. This is something they kind of need to look at closely and pay attention to. And I think for a lot of consumers like us, I like this because you always wonder, the quality of the product. Do they really use the product, that sort of thing? And this is kind of really kind of hone in on those people, influencers want to be promoting different things. And for those true promotions to really succeed about the product or whatever they're promoting, rather than just everyone doing everything and not knowing if it really is a good product or a legit product or anything like that. So I think this is very good and very smart. So now, guys, this is the most fun, end of the show, you could say. This is Valentine's Day, guys, and you might get a chance to win. I know Jay really wants one in a Girl Pulse t-shirt or a mug. It would make his Valentine's Day. So we're going to get to some fun trivia. So, and if you guys still have a question for Jay, we still have an extra minute or two while we're answering trivia questions. But Promo released a new study this week on the 12th as well. And they interviewed 500 marketers on different kind of video marketing practices. So our first question, and remember when you answer these questions, enter 1-A, B, or C, and then 2-A, B, or C. So we actually know what question that you are answering. And now keep in mind, to be in the running to win an Agorables t-shirt or mug, you have to answer both correctly. So the first question is, according to their study, what percentage said that video is the most effective form of online marketing? So, and this is kind of just thinking in the mindset of marketers. Is it A, 64%, B, 71%, C, 79%, or D, 83%? So I'm interested to know, what percentage did they find in their study? Did they think that video is the most effective form of online marketing? Now, everything that I hear, Jay and everyone, is just like, it has to be video or live video. And so you would think that this percentage needs to be high. It's not quite as high as you think. And I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to give you any more tips. Not quite as high as you think, but it's high. So that's the first question. And yeah, winners from, and we just posted, winners from season 1 had their shirts and mugs shipped this week, which is so exciting and awesome. So we're excited for that. And then yes, Carrie said 1C. That's a good guess, Carrie. Anybody else have any guesses on whether what they're thinking for the percentage for video is the most effective form of online marketing from these 500 marketers that Promo actually interviews? So this is a great question. We're going to go to the second question now. What percentage of marketers in their study use a self-serve video creation platform like Promo? Is it A, 43%, B, 55%, C, 68%, or D, 82%? I'm not going to give you a hint on this because then we're just going to give the answer away too much to everyone. But again, really quick, trivia question number 2, what percentage of marketers in Promo study use a self-serve video creation platform? And so I was kind of surprised, and you guys should all look at this article after the fact, not right now, but you should read it after the fact because it was kind of intriguing. And Brian said, B, in 2021, this will be the year of video. Yes. I agree.
Every year is the year of video.
Yes, this is true. You guys, you rarely hear from our producer, Mike, but he usually pops in when he really has something important to say. That's true. I think the year of video was 2015, 2016, but it is though, because, and I think it's live video too, because it's a great way to connect with people like we're doing here, which is so awesome and amazing. Now, with that said, guys, we're going to reveal the winners in about 24, 36 hours. So those that actually watch the replay get a chance to win. But with that said, thank you all so much for joining us, especially Jay. Jay, you've been so amazing. You've dropped so many knowledge bombs on us. I think everyone was blown away and they're like, crap. Even if they were taking notes, they're like, I really need to rewatch that and soak that in. So Jay, let us know where we can follow you, hire you, all that, your podcast, 3 Clips, Unthinkable, all that. Tell us how we can find you.
It's all at marketingshowrunners.com. If you're in a podcast player, just search 3 Clips, the number 3, the word clips. That's my weekly show, new every Monday. But you can just go to marketingshowrunners.com and that show is there too.
Awesome. Perfect. Jay, you are incredible. You're amazing. Now, where can we actually see you speak? What's your speaking schedule like the next couple months?
I am tired. Let's say that, but a good kind of tired. Let's see. I have something coming up in Montana for the first time. That'll be really fun. I'm in Nashville. I have actually an event in Boston. If you're in Boston, I have my first ever free event for the community, which is really fun because usually these are corporate events that not anyone can go to. If you're in Boston, February 26th, I'm doing a live podcast at Wistia's headquarters. It'll be in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that's February 26th. And you can search my Twitter or Wistia's Twitter. The link is in there somewhere. Totally free. I'm going to be on stage doing a live podcast for the first time ever. So come for the person who's used to giving one kind of speech and stay for me trying to mold myself to something new and hopefully not trip and fall on my face.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I feel like everyone's now booking their trip to Boston on February 26th. I wish I could go. I don't think I'm going to be able to because we got Social Media Marketing World, literally where we're leaving on the 28th. But maybe Mike, my boss, listening, we can make a trip to Boston.
I also do lots and lots of live video calls, both one-to-one and one-to-many with our subscribers at MSR. So if people are on the email list or they follow me on Twitter, especially the email list, I'll send invites. We do a lot of Zoom calls just to talk about subjects like this.
Awesome. That's so perfect. Jay, Thank you so much. You're so amazing. And I want to give a special shout out to Jen Cole, our show sponsor, who is kind of monitoring the comments, asking our questions, doing an amazing job, welcoming everyone into the show. Jen, thank you for everything. You can follow Jen at Jen Cole ICT, and you'll also see her at Social Media Marketing World because that's where she works. So hopefully everyone is going to that. And next week, we do have Michaela Alexis, the LinkedIn expert. She's going to be joining us to answer all of your LinkedIn questions. It's going to be an amazing, brilliant show. We're so excited for that. And along with that, we have our Social Success Summit 3.0 that starts next week. More than 30 speakers and sessions. And guess what, guys? It is free. It's the best part of any conference because you know what? You don't have to pay for it. You can sit on your couch and binge watch all the sessions whenever you want. They're going to be available for 30 days. So our goal is to make sure that you have everything that you need, all the resources possible, so you can do the best at your job as an entrepreneur and really make a difference. So you guys can sign up for Social Success Summit 3.0. But with that said, happy Valentine's Day. And Jay, I hope your daughter feels better. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the day and keep spreading love around the world. Bye, guys.